Okay, you ready for some orb videos? Okay,
Well,
let's
no,
do it.
I like this story, but I'm saying and we're going with the narrative.
Sure.
No, I'm not even trying to rush you. I'm just saying we know it has pings, so we think that they fake those pings so they can create a narrative that it is in the South Indian Ocean. But why are they? What happened? What do you think happened?
Yeah, so I think that what we see in these videos is what happened. As hard as it is to believe here, I think the United States government has gravity and space-time manipulation technology. Like literally, not just anti-gravity, which is if you talk to these UFO people, who I'm not a big fan of in general, they'd be like, yeah, we've got anti-gravity technology, which you see this first orb kind of doing around this plane.
Hmm.
But we're going to see this plane just straight up disappear. And this is where it comes into this complete space-time manipulation technology. Now we're watching these orbs spin around the plane, but they're moving around with purpose here. They've got this triangle formation, perfect equilateral triangle. They're doing something you can tell when they're spinning around. It appears to be mapping the plane. Now we've been able to figure out this seems like they're trying to map the plane to figure out exactly how big the singularity needs to be. And then they shift to this vertical orientation. And this is right before the zap. Now, in this video, it seems kind of weird, but you could imagine that somebody might be able to come up with this. I mean, we're clearly looking at real clouds here. We've also actually shown that these clouds are moving. It's just that they move so slowly because there's only a few seconds of each perspective shift that it's hard to see that the clouds are moving, but I guarantee you they are. I have a video we can show if necessary. We're looking at low altitude cumulus clouds. This plane's flying low. We see smoke coming out of the back of the plane here. The plane is descending, we were able to figure out. This is the accurate turning capabilities of a Boeing 777 on display here. We can also tell this screen is cropped. This is a cropped screen recording. And we can tell that because we can see this mouse coming in from the top right and moving off the top left or bottom left of the screen. We also believe that this is a screen recording because the mouse comes from the top right and it ends and goes back to the top right, as if it's clicking on start recording and then clicking on stop recording at the end. The coordinates in the bottom left, they say NROL 22 in the bottom left, which is the first launch of the SBIR system, Space-Based Infrared Satellite Constellation System, in 2006. And then we can see those coordinates in the bottom left as well. And they only move when the perspective shifts. So this isn't a situation where you're looking down on a satellite that's moving. The way that these systems work is that they actually collect the satellite data, send it to ground-based computers, and then somebody can log into the computer system and say, pull up Nicobar Islands at 1840 UTC. I want to, track this giant area. And then in this case, it looks like what they were doing is they did a cropped screen recording of a giant area, and they cropped out the drone, which is our second video. Yeah, so again, for the people that want to know, like, who filmed this is the United States assets that are out there, and this satellite capability is completely unknown. We were able to deduce the satellite capabilities from looking at this video and then doing research about the SBIR system as well as.
So you're saying the satellite shot this is what you're saying?
So what it really is like Google Earth mixed with
they put them on balloons
software.
Well, yeah, have you ever seen that? Where sometimes they have cameras on balloons, like China has spy satellites that are on balloons. They've landed. Could it have been one of those? You know what I'm talking about?
Well, in this case, we believe I'm going to show you another video real quick. We mapped every single satellite that's out there, and we found USA 229. This is a naval ocean surveillance satellite pair. We looked back at all the old trajectories of all the satellites. And turns out this is a satellite with another satellite right next to it. The whole purpose of this satellite is to track boats, planes, and other objects. And we see in the top of the screen here, you can see 1840 UTC, and these satellite pairs staring right down at the coordinates that we've got here. And this is a low Earth orbit satellite pair.
Real quick, Ashton, before you share the second one, has there been a whistleblower that has said that they revealed these videos, or how did we get these videos?
So I dug around for people that would have leaked these videos, espionage, willful retention of classified information, and I found Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin. I spent a couple of weeks looking around everybody who had ever been charged with this stuff in the time frame, and Edward C. Lin checks every single box. In fact, they obfuscated the charges against him. They tried to get him with espionage and put him in prison for life. And it turned out that he never exchanged anything with anyone from China. The government had to admit it. He flew on spy planes. He had signals intelligence experience, which is how all these assets communicate. The defense argued that the classified information in question was available on the internet. The government would never say what it was. The government was actually so afraid of going to trial because they thought that they would have to show what the classified information was that he leaked. Now, if that classified information was available on the internet, was it these videos? These videos have been confirmed to go back to 2014. The first one was published May 19th, 2014. This one was published June 12th, 2014. So you can imagine a scenario where somebody leaks these videos one by one because they think that the world is going to know the truth, and that Edward C. Lin was potentially, maybe he even thought it was UFOs. I think we're looking at government technology.
So you don't think it's an extraterrestrial? I think, yeah. So you think this is a technology that we have here on Earth?
I do not think that this is extraterrestrial. Now, I don't know where this technology comes from. The more I learn about this, the less certain I am about where this technology potentially comes from. I would argue that if you go back to the Philadelphia experiment, where we claimed that this battle cruiser teleported somewhere, they were trying to cloak that. Now, there's some engineers that were on board this plane, and supposedly they were working on advanced cloaking as well. So I would argue the reason why I don't think this is extraterrestrial is because this is an operation. People ask, why is the drone filming this? It's not, they were just randomly filming an airplane, and then all of a sudden some orbs come along. This was an operation, start to finish. I would argue this is espionage. I think that President Obama is directly implicated in the disappearance of this plane. He was president at the time. Joe Biden might be as well.
Do you think Michelle Obama?
How high it goes up?
Do you think Michelle Obama was born a boy?
Mike Obama, that's one of the funniest. That's one of the most common jokes that we do in my live streams. But I'm not going to comment on that, honestly.
That's just do you think the scans would be able to
see Michelle's penis?
Did you see it? Yeah, did make that?
Yeah, I think that. What you said, Raytheon scans or Halliburton scans? Yeah, they could probably.
Lockheed Martin. Yeah,
Lockheed Martin.
So satellites in the '60s already could have resolution down to 4 inches. So I'd say they might be able to see.
4 inches is fine. 4 inches is
that's enough, right?
It's always enough. Let's not.
It's perfectly average, all right? It's just, it's cold.
A good distance, a good length.
A couple things I want to point out, though, here is that when we're looking at this, so first of all, I believe for sure it's an operation, which would indicate that unless we just randomly caught some aliens zapping the aircraft, that this was an operation from the beginning. I think the United States started the fire. I think that we diverted the plane over to this location. When we look at these orbs here as well, you can see this heat signature. This heat signature is very odd. This is consistent with a magnetic monopole, which is science that was only published in 2015, the year after this plane disappeared. I've talked to Bob Grenier, who's in low energy nuclear reactions, otherwise known as cold fusion. And when he looked at this video, he said, well, I didn't go back in time and make this video. So either this is legit and this is like a black world kind of video that's out there, or, he couldn't explain what else it could possibly be. I don't know how somebody could come up with that, but also you see these orbs converge on the plane. I'm going to go to the slow-mo. At the end of this is the original video, by the way. It has slow-mo of it. So if somebody was faking these videos, why are they adding super slow-mo versions of it? Like where if they made a mistake, it would be obvious. And what you see here is the orbs, they kind of reorient right here where you can see the heat signature disappear, and then they converge on the plane. So I've talked to government engineers, Salvatore Paez, who has these Navy patents that are out there about gravity waves and superconductivity and inertial mass reduction. And he told me that to look into Coulomb's law on Coulomb gauge. And Coulomb's law would say if you take electric charges and you jam them together, your electric force increases exponentially. And when you look at this, it's exactly what the orbs are doing here. So from a scientific perspective, and I challenge any scientists out there to peer review or question this, is that you're seeing these orbs increase their electric charge to such a degree where when this singularity begins to happen, they've broken through something called the Schwinger limit. And the Schwinger limit would say that space becomes nonlinear, which is the idea that you're just ripping through the fabric of space to get to whatever is underneath, the nothingness that's underneath. And this is what I would call the ether, or scientists would say is the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. Now,
so you believe in the ether? Yeah, I do believe in the ether as well. So you do believe that there's an ether?
Yeah, so we're bringing the ether back. People want to throw this mysticism on the ether. I just think the ether is like the nothingness of space-time, but it's not empty. There's something there. It's like an ocean of energy that we can tap into. The warp, like Warhammer 40?
Well, Einstein said there had to be an ether, correct?
In 1920, he did come back to it. Now, people will say, oh, the Michelson-Morley experiment. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. They said the Michelson-Morley experiment proves that the ether is not real. Well, I just showed a video of somebody who did another version of it in 2009, and all they did was they flipped it vertically. And then now you can see that there is an interaction from the interferometry experiment where the interference pattern moves when it spins around. What about which would indicate that maybe there is an ether?
Well, speaking of the ether, what about the conspiracy that the MH370 actually flew over the ice wall and now it's on a different land?
There's a lot of conspiracies that are out there. And there's ones about the Rothschilds and some people with the patents on board.
So it's like Titanic. So you're telling me it's like modern day Titanic?
I think this plane went to Diego Garcia, and that's where a lot of these conspiracy theories that out there think
What's
the plane
Diego
went.
Garcia? Wait, what is that? Why don't I know what that is?
A lot of people don't even know Diego Garcia. So I'm going to show this other screenshot right here as well, where if this plane did get warped, teleported, wormholed, whatever it is, then using the right-hand rule in electrical engineering, this plane would be going to the west because we can map out its direction of travel. It's going backwards. And what's to the west is the Maldives. So in the Maldives, there's some islanders that saw the plane in the early morning hours. And Diego Garcia is this military base down here in the British Islands or British Indian Ocean territory. It's a very advanced military base. I've been told this is like Area 51 on steroids. So maybe they are hiding these orbs there. Maybe they test the orbs out here. It's a good spot to hide an aircraft. There's nothing nearby. And this is where like Mark Dugain, Catherine T, that witness, as well as Gregory, I forget what his name is, the comedian out there. A lot of people thought this plane went to Diego Garcia. And I actually happen to agree with them. That's the most logical place for this plane to end up. The only reason why the experts discounted it is they couldn't figure out how the plane could get over to the west of these islands where these islanders saw it. Well, if we have some kind of space-time manipulation, teleportation type technology, then this plane shows up over here in the Maldives and then just flies south to Diego Garcia. There was Philip Wood, the American passenger, the adult American passenger. There was a weird picture that's all black that gets posted on 4chan like a week after this plane disappears. And it says he's being held prisoner somewhere and he doesn't know where. And it turns out they looked at the EXIF data on it. And the EXIF data has coordinates for Diego Garcia as well. So while I can't prove that's where the plane went, throw out all the other conspiracies. That's where I'm putting my money. I'm going to say that's where the plane went. I'm going to tell the American government, let me in there and look. The last piece of evidence I want to show related to that or talk about related to that is there was 19 family members that signed a joint statement begging the government to look into the fact that the cell phones were still ringing for up to 4 days later. One of them even proved it on television. Now, cell phones, contrary to the CNN experts, do not ring when they're underwater or turned off, or, if you're out in the Andromeda galaxy or wherever people think this plane went. So I don't think this plane went to another dimension. I think that this plane simply we used some very hyper advanced exotic technology on it, and this plane ended up in Diego Garcia.
So it went through like a wormhole that we created, basically, and then it can just teleport there. I mean, I know you don't know, but that's just you think that this wormhole can only send it to places here on Earth, I'm guessing?
That's exactly what I think. And if you want to look at this here, well, why are there Defense Intelligence Agency reference documents? We found on the internet from 2010. One of them is called Warp Drive, Dark Energy, and Manipulation of Extra Dimensions. This one actually talks about the idea of the ether. And here's another one for you if you guys are really ready to have your mind blown.
Yes.
This one's called Traversable Wormholes, Stargates, and Negative Energy.
Wait, what? I think I've actually read this document with the Stargates. I remember I saw a YouTube video about this. Wait, that's insane.
So the question is, why do these even exist? And I would argue that these exist because the government now has plausible deniability. The government comes out and eventually someone exposes this and go, we've got this space-time manipulation technology. And they go, oh, well, we weren't lying about it. We had these papers out there. You just didn't think it was real, And the people that write these are like people like Eric Davis, Hal Puthoff, and other engineers that work directly with the government and work on private labs. So part of the reason why I'm so convinced this is real is I've been interviewing some of these people. I interviewed Salvatore Pais, who's a Navy engineer. I interviewed my buddy Dave Rossi, who's a DoD private contractor engineer who works in private labs as well. And they pretty much just said, like, we've seen this stuff in labs. It's just the public just has no idea that it's out there. Like these papers, one of them talks about dark energy and the one of them talks about negative energy. Those are the exact things that we need for a wormhole or warp drive to be possible. And when we look at that drone video, when we see that cold black event happen, that's an endothermic event. It's like the exact opposite of an explosion. It's an absorption of energy. I think we're looking at negative energy, dark energy when we see that happen. That's why I think that the ether is real as well, and why I'm all in on this idea of free energy is that I think these videos are the first ever in the history of man, public videos that show a wormhole, but also just show negative energy, like rip away the fabric of space-time and what's left? The negative energy underneath. So that's my personal belief on this. And I'm not trying to convince everybody else out there. Like, I know this sounds crazy as hell. Like I'm a normal guy and I never would have believed in this as possible like a year ago. But I think that if anybody looks through the evidence like I have over these last 9 months or so, you'll realize that this science is real. Like there's a guy named Thomas Bearden. who I never knew who he was. He was also a government engineer, aerospace engineer, died in 2022. And I found a video from 1985 where he's talking about a cold explosion. That's exactly what we're seeing in this video. And he says the way you do it is that they messed up Maxwell's equations. He's like the father of electrical engineering. And when we reduced his equations, we lost something called the scalar potential. And I like to do this quick example for people what a scalar potential is they would say in conventional physics, when we reduce Maxwell's equation, you pull on both sides of this rubber band, that there's nothing left. They would say, well, it didn't move left or right, so there's no force left. And this is essentially saying getting rid of the scalar potential. Now I can pull twice as hard, and they would still say, well, there's nothing left because you're pulling equally on both sides. Now eventually I can pull so hard this rubber band's going to snap. And what that is that's the scalar potential here. Now imagine that I were to take this same scalar potential, instead of a rubber band, I'm going to do that to space-time. I'm going to yank on space-time in both directions until it snaps. That's the same idea as gravity, is that when you're pulling on both sides, it's not that there's nothing left. It's that you're now manipulating the interaction between the ether and our reality. Gravity, that's what the suction is, or mass on space-time. And with respect to this, then, if you can do that with a beam and you can shoot this scalar potential, Thomas Beard would say you cross the streams like in Ghostbusters.
Oh,
Yeah,
if you cross the stream,
don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't cross the streams. But here's the thing: is that you can then create a cold explosion at a distance, or you can create a regular explosion at a distance, depending on how you polarize it. So one of those is a directed energy weapon, and then the other one, the cold explosion, is an absorption of energy, where it's going to go somewhere else. And I argue that if you were to take that technology, the very earliest iteration would be you take like a radar kind of beam, and you would shoot them up into the sky. And if you advance it further, you would put it on a satellite, and then you have your satellite shooting down at the sky. Now, if you advance it even further than that, I would say you have some floaty orbs that now can have the beams on them, and you can create a triangle pattern and shoot them all directly into one another to create a 0-point system. And then you can create an energy density or remove energy from a location, just like we see in those videos.
I'm so fly, I'm aligned with the planes. My grind so refined, I got no time for no games. Ask yourself